Hey, Susan.
Hey, Akash. I'm trying to see how to blur my background a little bit.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Feynman.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, can you see my screen fine?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm adding a new topic for today's agenda, and later I would like to introduce a new contributor to our community. Maybe we can start the introduction first. Susan.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah.
I think
Maybe you notice.
I see Shravani on the call. Hi,
Hello.
Shravani. Is that how we pronounce the name?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, welcome.
Hello. My
Would
name
you
is
like to introduce? Go ahead.
My name is Shravani, and I'm currently doing my BTech. And I'm in my second year right now, and doing my BTech in Information Technology from IIIT Vadodara. And I'm into front end, and I was introduced to this community by women. I first joined Aura's community, and now I'm exploring Ratify too. So yeah,
That's great. Welcome.
Yeah, thank
Feel
you.
free to reach out anytime you have any question. And have you joined the Ratify Slack channel already?
Yeah, I joined it yesterday only. Yeah, I've joined it.
Cool. Welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm Susan. I'm one of the project maintainers for Ratify. And we typically host the community meeting every week, but alternate times. So this week we're running it on Tuesday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. I don't know what time zone you're in, and that for next week, it'll be 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay.
But you'll be able to find the calendar invites from the community section on the README page.
Yeah, I saw the calendar.
Cool. Yeah, we have a couple of folks on the call now, so I think we can get started today. Just
Lucky.
starting with...
Lucky is joining.
Sorry, Feynman, you were cut off a little bit.
I see Lucky is joining. Just warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Feynman. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Lucky. Before we start, does anyone want to add any agenda items? Like, Lucky, we don't see you very often. Do you have any question for us?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Just dropping by. Glad to see everybody. I'll dive in if I can, but please stick to the agenda that you have.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, starting with the announcement. So we're starting a new pull request series. I want to see if Luis is on the call. Maybe we can explain the process for the PR series once he joins. But the calendar invite is the same calendar invite for the community meeting. And currently it's scheduled for Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific time. And I think we still need to work with Luis a little bit on like how we set the agenda on a weekly basis, but we're starting a PR series and we'll be posting to the Ratify channel if we are running them. And if you have a PR that you would like to review during this time, just give us a message on the channel. And the next announcement, Akash have merged a weekly dev build workflow, and it's set to build weekly Sunday morning. Is that right, Akash? Would you like to talk a little bit about the weekly dev build going forward?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have a weekly dev build that is now merged in main. So starting this weekend, we will have another dev build that'll be pushed to a specific package on our GitHub page. So yep, Susan, if you could just bring that up.
Yeah. Do you want me to go to the PR for the local chart update?
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
So I think you've added a comment, right?
Yes.
Here.
Yeah. Yep. So the dev build workflow is triggered on a schedule. It'll build the Ratify image as well as the Ratify CRDs image every Sunday morning, 12:30 a.m. Pacific time. It's also maintainers can manually trigger the workflow. So if we feel like there's a breaking change to the chart that just got merged and we want to get a new build out there, or if someone opens an issue on GitHub and then wants one of the maintainers to cut a new dev build, we can also manually do that without having to wait for the weekly cadence build. So it's pretty easy to use. The package gets published to GHCR, and it lives in a separate repository. So Susan, if you just click that link. Yep. So it's in a Ratify, and then it's suffixed with -dev. So there's two packages that you have to reference. There's the regular Ratify image one, so Ratify dev, and it has the tag format is dev dot the timestamp of the day it was built. And then there's also the accompanying Ratify-CRDs-dev package that you will also specify in the Helm chart. And it has the same tag form too.
So do we ever foresee doing this multiple times in the same day, and would that change the timestamp?
So for now, we've kept it at the day level granularity, and it would override previous tag. That's kind of how the notation dev build tag suffix also works. So that's why, for consistency's sake, I just went with that. But if we see that we're going to have, this might be an issue in the future, we can always switch to a different tag-based schema.
No, I think it's good enough just to know what it'll do. I mean, I don't foresee a lot of multiple builds in the same day. I just was trying to understand how it worked. I think it's fine.
Okay, yeah. It should just, it'll overwrite the previous one. And this is just a sample command on how to install it. You have to override the repository, the CRD repository, and then most importantly, the tag to match the dev version that you want to point to. And since this is going to point to a chart that is probably not released, since it's going to differ from the last release version of the chart, we'd recommend using the local Helm chart install section of the README that is in this PR that is going to be merged soon. So actually, Susan, do you think we should maybe add this little snippet there too?
Yeah. So I will take your command from this comment, and then I'll incorporate that into the quick start. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that'd be great. And if you think it's going to pollute it a little bit, maybe we link to another subsection. No. I know our README is getting pretty long.
Yeah. Yeah, quick start is no longer quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll have a look and maybe we can pull this out into a separate page and be like, if you're using the dev build, this is what you need to do.
Sounds good. Yep.
Yep, we'll be able to look at that. Any other question from anyone about the dev build? Okay, thanks again, Akash. The next announcement is for people that's outside of the US time zone. So the US is starting daylight saving next week. And this meeting is scheduled for 4 p.m. Pacific time. So it means like for Binbin and Xinghe, if you're in Shanghai, this might move your meeting. So if your calendar isn't adjusting automatically, you please review the time and also let us know if this time still works for you. Like I imagine everyone have the option to work from home, but Binbin and Xinghe, I imagine this is now an earlier time in the day for you.
It is fine for me. What about Binbin?
Yeah, and Feynman as well. I think you're in Shanghai.
Yeah, it's good to me. Yeah.
It's good to me.
Okay, thanks for confirming. Cool. And now we can move on to the PRs. I think we have about 7 open PRs. Just a quick status and see if anyone is blocked. Sajay, are you still working with Toddy on the contribution letter?
I'm putting that on hold right now while we get some clarity on what's happening with Notary. So that's why I'm just leaving it as draft, but it kind of like puts it in place that this is what we'll check in.
Yep, sounds good. Binbin, for the CRD versioning, I think we're really, really close to merging 664. I just left a comment on the documentation. I don't think if you need some extra time to write up docs for like what's the developer experience upgrading from alpha to beta, like we can totally address it in a separate PR. So do you want to merge the CRD version bump?
Yeah, let me check the comment. Okay.
Oh, cool. We can work offline. Like, I think there's no other, I think you have already resolved most of the comments. And I think it's good to go. Like, if we want to address the docs separately, we can do that later.
Okay, yeah, I can think with you after.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, PR 665. Thank you for having the walkthrough, Feynman. Is this one ready to go as well?
Yeah, actually you can open it up and I see all of those comments are resolved and approved, but only one new comment from Akash. Actually, just one original commit was not signed and it shows unverified in the commit history. So I think I need to rebase and squash and resign those commits today.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you already have the tool set up on your dev machine to sign the commit? Like, does it happen automatically for you usually?
I am using GPG key signing on my local machine, so I think it should work for this problem.
Okay. Yeah, let us know if you need any help or run into any issues.
Okay.
PR 671.
Can you let Luis in? Somebody.
Oh, yes, sorry. I see him now in the waiting room. Thanks, Sajay. Just having a quick status. I think, Akash, you've responded to Binbin's comments.
Yeah, I've been working with Binbin on what the best way to mock some of these methods are. Yeah, so we're still going back and forth trying to figure out what the cleanest way to do this is. So Bin just left a few more comments. Whenever you have a chance, any feedback would be great.
Okay, I'll take it now.
Thanks.
Thanks. Next up, PR676.
Yeah, it just need more reviews on it.
Got it. And I think Akash is reviewing this one.
Right.
Yeah, I'll take a look again, Bin after this.
Good. Thank you.
And 681, I will add the comment in the command from the comment from Akash, and then I'll push again. And I also have a PR691 to refactor the certificate store CRD. Sorry, it's just the factory, actually, not to refactor the CRD, just the moving it to a factory create pattern. And Bin, I'm actually waiting for the E2E test PR to merge. So then we have coverage from the inline certificate provider as well as the key vault provider. That's why it's in draft. So once you merge 676, I will publish 691. Does that sound good?
Okay. Yeah, sounds good to me.
And someone have their hand up. I'm trying to see who is it. Ah, that's Sajay. Go ahead, Sajay.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in whether Lucky had asked a question about using the image tag, the digest, the Gitcha instead of the date. Is there any concern on that, or?
Yeah, it's related to the dev build, isn't it?
I think that should be fine. Yeah, I can switch to that. Actually, that's a good idea. I think notation currently is using the date, so that's why for consistency, I just copied what they were doing. But I can switch to that if anyone has any other objections against that.
So I like the user experience of knowing when the build was done. I mean, I guess I can find that by diving deeper into it. I think it was me that kind of recommended last time that notation was doing that date time thing. But yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter.
I mean, we could add both, but I think the tag is going to get really long then.
So is there a reason why it has to be the hash? I mean, what's the use case, or what's the need for that?
I think it's so that it's very clear on what commit on the main branch that the build is built off of. Is that what you were getting at, Lucky?
Yeah, I think that's what I've used it for before. So you could actually have backwards traceability to what created this build. I know there was a comment about, if we had multiple in a day, you couldn't be crystal clear as to which one was created, especially if you had multiple in a day. I'm not going to dig my heels in about it, but I just like the backwards traceability. You could go back, you could see when that commit, who did the commit, and therefore you'd know exactly what code you had, especially when you're in those dev cycles where you cut and releases pretty quickly, or cutting, merging code pretty quickly that lands on the branch. But, it's just a suggestion. I don't want to say one way or the other.
You could have both, right? Like you could have the date followed by the digest. It's only 6 or 7 characters more. That works.
Or we could do like an
Short.
abbreviated digest, like how the git commit works, something like that. Yeah.
So I'm not married to it either. I'm not digging my heels in either, so to speak. So, I mean, whatever everyone thinks is fine with me.
Cool. So I feel we're agreeing on having both, but just a shortened digest and the date.
Yeah, I think that would make the most sense. So I'll send a small PR to update that.
Sounds good. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, so that's our PR list. Now we will move on to the discussion items. Yeah, thank you, Bin, for creating the issue for the using get secret instead of get certificate. So I had a question that with our notary walkthrough today, I'm just going to quickly bring it up. Does it already create, like with the key vault create command, do we already create the root and a leaf?
So if we just run the notation like the generate test command, it will only create a self-signed certificate.
Yep.
So which works in our case for now. But in the future, if a customer had a certificate chain from root to leaf, and then in that case, if we still use the AKV SDK to the get certificate API to get a certificate, it will only get the leaf cert, and it will fail the validation on the notation side.
Yep. And we need to update, like I think do we have a walkthrough that is more realistic of the, like that matches the customer scenario a bit more? Like, do we have a walkthrough with the certificate chain?
Not yet, because it's also the notation community just found this issue, and so I have a sync with them yesterday. So basically, the customers need to firstly like have a certificate chain in the AKV, and then disable the option to like export the secret, and also assign the get secret permission. And then we in Ratify, we should call the API of get secret to get the chain.
I see. Yeah, I was wondering, like, once we switch to get certificate, we should also have coverage for using the certificate chain. So wondering if we also need to update our end-to-end test that you have the PR.
Right.
Like, yeah, because your PR for the end-to-end test is also using a self-signed certificate instead of a certificate chain. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. And actually it works for now, because we also found another kind of like security vulnerability, because we re-implemented the get certificate in the interface. So in Notation Go, their implementation will do the cert validation, but in our implementation, we don't do the validation. So it will pass that validation and just go through the original like verify workflow, and so that even the leaf cert can like verify the signature.
I'm surprised. So if they're saying you cannot verify the image with the leaf node, shouldn't notation library, the verification should also fail?
So I think, so actually the leaf search, they have the validation just in the get certificates. So, but we bypass that. And I feel
so there's
like
no error thrown in the verification.
Yeah, there is no error, because that's a part of the offline signing or offline verify workflow. So this okay, and because we implemented the trust store interface, and that means we need to follow the trust store spec from the notation side.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, I can take a look at this one. Do you think this would be for this RC release?
I think so, but we need to wait for notation to have another fix. They need to export a method for validation first, and then we can use that method to do validation.
Okay. Got it. Well, I'll work offline with you on this. And also I had a question about this part, like how does Ratify ensure the private key is not exportable?
This is not on the Ratify side. This is on the AKV side.
AKV side.
Yes. So there is an option to disable or enable export like a private key. And if it's enabled, when we call the get secret API, it will get both the key, the private key and the certificate. And this is not what we want. We just want the certificate. Oh, E raised the hand.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I just want to add to Bingbing's comment. So currently for notation, and the Ratify use notation library in order to validate the signature, right? The Ratify need to store the CA certificate into the notation trust store. And the trust store currently accepts CA certificates or self-signed certificates. So that's the reason why the current flow of Ratify works. But notation doesn't support the trust store stored with the leaf certificate and use that to verify the signature. Currently, it works because there is some issue, as Bingbing mentioned, because Ratify re-implement some interface, and that implementation bypass the validation of the leaf certificates. But according to the notation spec, the CA trust store should only be the CA certificates or self-signed certificates. Now, another issue is that since currently the solution, we have the solution to pull the certificates from AKV, right? And we use the SDK, the AKV SDK get certificates, but get certificates will only return leaf certificates. So even if customer merged the certificate chain, the CA and or the intermediate CA into the AKV, we use this get certificate API, we can only get the leaf certificates. And we use these leaf certificates to validate the signature. It would fail after we fix the problem, as Bingbing mentioned. There's another API from AKV side, so that users can use to get the certificate chain, which is get secret. But for this API, there is a security threat if a user didn't mark the private key as non-exportable. If user didn't do it, then the get secret will return not only the certificate chain, but also the private key. And a solution provided by AKV side is that user should mark the private key as non-exportable, then use get secret API, only the certificate will be returned. Yeah, that's basically the something that we detected in notation side. And we also, in this guiding semester, we also create a dependency ask AKV team to provide a new API so that user can get the certificate chain without using the get secret API, because get secret requires additional permission. But based on current negotiation with AKV team, they are still not committed yet, because one of the reasons is that the AKV is designed for the TLS certificates. So the sign certificate is part of it is not the initial goal for the AKV. So there could be some consideration from their side on the TS certificates, not covered the sign certificates.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. I was just wondering if Ratify somehow fetches the private key because the key vault isn't marked as non-exportable. Should we give a warning? Should we throw out an error? or should Ratify just kind of throw away the private key and just keep the public?
Yeah, for me, I think Ratify should delete this private key. It's a security threat. The private key, once you put it locally, it could be compromised.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I kind of, I don't know anything about AKV, obviously. I've never worked with it, but I'm a little concerned about. So to me, I mean, I get the idea that, we want to throw away the private key if it's erroneously pulled down. Wouldn't we also want to verify that the key vault we're using is set up properly before we pull anything? Is that not something that we could check via an API call?
Yeah, Jimmy, I think we can definitely explore that. It depends on if the identity that's getting the key vault, does it have appropriate permission?
Oh, okay.
It may only have permission to fetch item, not to look at the configuration, but I'll test it out.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm looking for is to make sure that we've got some type of defense in depth approach here, or maybe some other compensating control, just to make sure that we're not using a component that's incorrectly configured.
Yeah, agreed.
If I may, I feel like it's the wrong approach. The whole idea is that Ratify is a verifier. There's no reason for it to know private secrets in any form. Asking the customer to assign more permissions than required seems to be the wrong path. If we are trying to get a leaf cert and a bundle secret in some form, and AKV is not able to support that, we should probably ask AKV to support that, right? If this is a valid scenario and we can make that ask, it might take time. And if we have an option of bundling the chain as we do, I mean, we do this in multiple places, right? We do the search chain bundle. And maybe define it as use another key vault that has only the secret. I think the whole scenario needs to be documented rather than pulling the private key down and discarding it, because that's a promise. It's not a guarantee by permissions or anything like that. So it seems to be a pattern that I'm kind of uncomfortable with from a security posture.
Yeah, I would never approve this as if I were a security, because at some point this could be compromised, I guess. So I'm really uncomfortable with it as well.
Yeah.
I see Toddy had a hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that from security point of view, that is actually not acceptable as implementation. So we should not go that way.
Cool.
Yeah. To kind of close on that, I think the challenge is real, right? We cannot get a bundled, proper bundle cert with the public keys. It might be this introduces burden on the user, but at least guarantees that the separation of concerns and there's no incorrect permissions that we need to kind of provide. Let's at least reword this in such a way that we don't have to change the permission set. And I think calling out the challenge here is the first thing, which is the first part, right? Which is you cannot get the fully bundled search chain here.
Another question is that how user retrieve or get the CA certificates. So if user get the certificates from the CA vendor, they need to merge to the AKV, right? According to our current flow. Why not user pass this say certificates into the Trustdoor directory?
Yes, that's kind of, I didn't want to discuss a solution here. I think we should acknowledge that this is a gap. And there are a couple of options here that we have done, right? We know that if the chain is not available, we have to probably do some, bash ninja to get the bundling done correctly. And then we have a couple of options here. One is ask the customer, ask the user if they want to have a secret store and store the public keys also separated. Don't put the private keys and the public keys together if they really don't want to. Or they could inject it using the CRD directly as this is my cert, this is my bundle cert, and use that as well. So we do have a couple of options. I think calling out those options is what I'm hoping we can do, but we agree that there is a challenge here. And let's maybe internally talk to the Key Vault team also.
Yep, if you can share the dependency ask on Key Vault, we'll review that as well.
Sure, I can send it out later, offline.
Thanks. Okay, moving to the next item. Create a website for Ratify. Payman, did you create this one? Yeah, it's currently assigned to Shravani.
Yep. Actually, we recently have work items for notation and the Auras website. Shravani is also very active in the Auras community. I would like to see if there is any opportunity for Ratify to build a website from scratch. I know Shravani is also experienced in front-end development and design. So I created this issue, and Shravani shows his interest in contributing to this proposal. So I would like to hear some thoughts and ideas for Ratify website. I know we have a domain name, ratify.sh for the website name, website domain name, but we don't have any site linked to that domain name. So as Ratify v1.0 will be released this year. So I guess it's a time to kick off the website discussion and design at this moment. But before we implement anything, we will have a proposal, a hack markdown doc for everyone to review. So just bring this to the community meeting and hear thoughts from everyone out there.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I've seen like everyone have their website, like the CSI driver, and they have like good breakout of like concepts and tutorials and like usage samples. I just wonder if there's like a standard framework that open source project use, or does everyone do something different?
There are a lot of frameworks. Actually, you might know Hugo, Doxorus, and another front-end website framework. We can choose one that Shravani is preferred and experienced with. I think we might need to confirm what pages we need to design and include for the first version. And I think at least the landing page, documentation, community, and blogs should be the mandatory pages for the first version. Having a website would be a good foundation if we, when we submit Ratify to become a CNCF sandbox project in the near future.
Cool. Well, look forward to hearing the proposal. Any other comments about this issue?
No, I think in pursuing sandbox, I think this. Are we saying that we're going to have this done before we pursue sandbox? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's correct. And without the website, I think it is hard to present the product value, scenarios, and everything we want to present to the CNCF sandbox review. I think having a website and a well-organized documentation would be a good foundation for applying to become a sandbox project. Actually,
yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I think videos would also help as well, right? Around inside the documentation, right? So yeah, I agree.
Thanks, Jimmy. If you are interested in this proposal, feel free to join us, and we can work on this proposal together.
Yeah, if I have time, yeah, I will.
Okay. Thank you, Damon and Shravani. The next item is discuss how to formalize RC as non-breaking and leverage experimental flag going forward. Sajay, you want to talk about this one?
Yes. So Satak from Gatekeeper kind of like pinged me and asked. Bluntly put, we had some breaking changes with Ratify and notation and things like that. And there might be an expectation that RCs are non-breaking. So this probably was lack of my understanding of what RCs are expected to be. And could we consider moving to an experimental flag that is maybe more flexible, and putting things behind the flag also gives us an ability to set the expectation that these are going to be changing over time. I think that is something we start thinking about going forward for the next RC. I will have to repeat the same thing with notation and or as if needed. But that's something that I just wanted to bring up with this group and discuss if there is any concern or if there's any opinions on keeping RC as non-breaking. And good that Lucky is here. Lucky, what are your opinions on this as well? I mean, you've seen this a couple of times, right? With Helm having experimental and other things.
Yeah, it's my understanding. So first, let me say that there's no consistency about. Some people use RCs, some projects use it, other projects do not. It is my understanding that, and this is only off Helm and Kubernetes specifically, is that there should be nothing breaking introduced into an RC. It should basically be it should only be bug fixes. The only condition where you can introduce a breaking change if it's for a security vulnerability. So that's typically, I can go and see if there's some direction or language out there that you could point at. But I know RCs mean different things to different organizations as well. So, but I'd say as a rule of thumb, beta is the way where you start to stabilize, and RC is just trying to get a binary out there that people can start testing with and run through their soak tests and let you know if you broke anything before you actually publish it. And the reason we did them in Kubernetes was we drop a .0 release. Everyone would say, all this stuff is broken. And the next day we'd have to cut a .1 release. So it's basically, if you don't have RCs, usually your .0 release serves as an RC, and then you go to .1, .2, .3, which is just a bunch of bug fixes. So use that. That's been my experience. Basically to stop a .0 release being non-usable.
To just bump versions up.
Yep.
So if I understand it correctly, I thought I heard you say RCs would not introduce breaking changes. However, if RCs do introduce new features, they would be behind feature flags, enabled by whoever is configuring during the Helm install of the RC. Is that what we're shooting towards?
That would be one way to handle it. I think probably in the future, you probably wouldn't want to be introducing experimental flags in the RC piece. But it's okay. We can move forward. But opt in if you needed to drop something in. Opting in is better at that point to a breaking change.
And
yeah, I think we need additional discussion on this one.
Agreed. No, this conversation was not a decision forming conversation. It's more about just letting this group of people, and there's some overlap between Notary and Auras. I think Yi and Feynman are here as well. So it'd be good to kind of like establish the same pattern among all three of them, because they're kind of tied in terms of usability. So if we did experimental in one, we would have to kind of flow the thing across. Or if Ratified is experimental, it's the Leaf project, so it's okay. But if we expect Auras or Notation to do something similar, I just want to make sure that we follow patterns or some convention that exists, and learn from any mistakes we made around here, right? So that was the gist of the conversation. And we have time before we cut the next one. So maybe we add a flag, or we discuss that this is what everybody wants to do and go with it. So anyway,
yeah. Sajid, do you want to start a discussion in the Ratify repository?
Sure.
How do we want to track this?
Yeah, I'll open an issue, or I'll open a discussion.
Thanks. And are there any open PRs right now that we need to move to the experimental flag? Let me open up PRs again.
If you're going to break something, yes, but I don't know whether there's anything breaking right now.
Yeah, I think everything is non-breaking. We didn't introduce any new properties to CRD, so that's safe. Yeah, I think. That's the end of our agenda. But I remember, Jimmy, you asked in the Ratify channel about what is our plan handling critical updates. And I think that's what you asked about. Do you want to talk about the taking critical changes?
Yeah, I think it was kind of covered to a certain degree, earlier when Akash was talking about the approach. I just think we have to have a documented approach to, it's one thing to say that we're going to support, we want to support weekly builds, but we could also trigger, a daily build if necessary, depending on what's going on with the code base. But at the same time, we also need to be able to support that same type of manual build and understand what type of build it's going to be to address, CVEs and other critical issues with the code base. So I think that's an additional maybe overlay over top of the weekly build pattern that was discussed earlier.
Yeah, I think the first step would be communicated in the Ratify channel. Akash, is that our process for requesting? How do we request a build if we need to? Do we do it through issues, or should we do it through the Slack channel?
So we don't have a formalized process yet. So whatever, I guess we agree upon, but based off of discussions last week, I think we should, at a minimum, open up an issue so that at least there's like a trace of this request versus stuff getting lost in the Slack channel. And then maybe we can also follow up with pasting the issue link in the Ratify Slack channel to bring awareness to the maintainers. So maybe tag the maintainers or something. So for the weekly build or manual build process, that's what I was thinking would be the case. We don't have that, like Jimmy said, we don't have that written down anywhere yet. And so maybe we add that to the releases.md file and say, hey, this is the process for requesting a manual build.
And then I agree with that. I think everything should be traceable back to an issue. It's just like, if I want something to change in the project, I'm not just going to submit a cold PR, right? I would want to first submit an issue and then come back and make sure I've got some buy-in before I start working on a PR. I want that same type of rigor around any manual build trigger, but I think there's additional rigor or at least documentation around how are we going to step-by-step handle, like what's the run book for when we've identified a high or critical vulnerability, and what is maybe our SLA or SLO for when we will make that build available, I guess, is also part of that documentation.
Yeah. Akash, do you want to start a proposal and we can just use the PR to formalize the process maybe?
Sure, yeah, I'll put something out and then everyone can leave their comments on it and we can iterate that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great start. Any other comments? Cool. Luis, you joined a couple of minutes late, and we've already done the announcement, but I think we can talk about the PR series a little bit more. And do we have a PR to be reviewed next Monday? And when do we say we're going to cancel the PR meeting? Or maybe if we have a PR to review, we can post a link to the Slack channels like, hey, we're going to be reviewing this Monday. Do you want to talk about the process around the PR series?
Yeah, so it's still like in progress. Basically, the proposal here is bring up during this community. So we wanted to add a new series to just discuss code and so provide a space for everyone to walk through some of the more complex or like if they wanted more discussion around certain changes. So we created this space on Mondays, early Tuesdays for China. And so in order for them to bring, for facilitating some code reviews with everyone on the community. Right now, the process is still very ad hoc. Like during this, I expect if during these communities, you expect to have a PR to be reviewed, bring it up and we can schedule it for the following PR review session, or like post a message in Slack and we can also reserve it that way. We'll cancel the series if no requests are there by Monday morning in Pacific Standard Time, or I guess that's Tuesday, sorry, that's Monday late for China time. So if you have any feedback or if you feel like you don't have an opportunity to bring PRs, let us know and we can continue refining this process.
Yeah, thanks, Luis. Yeah, that's everything on our agenda. Anything else before we wrap up today?
The only thing that I have, I'll reach out to Akash offline. I still need to discuss how we're going to go forward with the ECR caching, the ECR credential caching that I need to do. And is it going to be specific to ECR, or are we going to look at it beyond ECR? So I just need to get that decision so that I can start working on that in the near future.
Sure, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we can set something up on Slack.
Okay, yep, that's fine.
Cool. Thanks for joining, everyone. Take care. I'll see you next week.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.